Welcome to Let's Talk About It. A podcast gives a platform for real talk, real people, real topics, real conversations. Please subscribe, like, comment, enjoy this journey, and enjoy this ride. Welcome to this week's episode. Welcome everybody to Let's Talk About It. A podcast gives a platform for real talk, real people, real topics, real conversations. First, before I introduce my exciting guest today, thank you so much to all my subscribers who have subscribed to this podcast. If it's the first time you are looking at this podcast, please subscribe, please like, please comment, please share. The more likes and comments I get, puts me in a different algorithm, and I'm trying to get to my ultimate goal. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Miss Jo Summers is back.
Good morning, Lou.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you saw the episode, if you didn't see the episode, she was on my episode 27. She has a two-part episode about her whole life to where she is today. Please give it a look. It's so she tells everything with her journey. Now today we're going to talk about her podcast. Her podcast is Breakfast of Choice. Choices, right? Choices.
Breakfast of choices. Yep.
Breakfast of Choices.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we kind of dabbled in that the last time, but this podcast is going to be about some of the things that she goes over with this. I have listened to this podcast. I have been on this podcast myself. You know, this is a podcast that gives a safe place to tell people stories, overcoming struggles, addiction, mental illness, incarceration, which we'll get into a lot more later on, domestic violence, suicide, toxic families. Got to tell you about toxic families.
Mm-hmm.
Toxic family structures, and relationships. She was on my podcast before. I was on her podcast. You know, she's been on many podcasts before, but to give a little background, when I first saw her, I saw her on Tammy Lynn's podcast, Hope, Helping Other People Evolve. She was just on another great podcast, which I love how she told her story again on Untamed Psyche podcast. I don't want to butcher her name, but I think it's Chris Marazzi.
You got it, Chris
Yeah.
Marazzi.
You know, I actually caught a couple episodes of her podcast. You got to check that out as well. It's a good podcast as well. Jo, how are you doing today?
I am doing great, Lou. I'm excited to be here. Happy to be on your show again. You know, I always love hanging out with my friend Lou. We always have a great time, and I appreciate you having me back on.
Yes, you know, we go, just like yours, but mine's a little bit more raw and unscripted than yours. So yours more professional than mine, though.
Oh, it's pretty raw, Lou. It's pretty raw, and there's no scripting. Trust me there. I'm a wing it. I wing it. I'm a winger.
Hey, look, we all wing it though, right? But you know what? We all love what we do. Jo, the first thing I gotta ask you, right? Because we kind of dabbled into your last episode, Breakfast of Choices. Like, why that name? First of all,
well, I'll tell you where the name came about, but the first thing is every day we wake up, we all have a new chance to make a new choice, right?
Yeah.
So tomorrow's a new day. Every day, tomorrow's a new day. In recovery, the saying is one day at a time. So every day we wake up, we have the chance to make a new choice. And first thing we do is breakfast, right? And so the name actually came about when I was incarcerated. And my first morning, it was actually county jail. And this girl sat next to me and she said, "Hey, can I have your biscuit and jelly?" And it's 5:15 in the morning and I'm thinking, what the hell? What is she talking about? And I'm just sitting there telling myself, this is I'm at breakfast at 5:15 in the morning and these are the choices that I make. And it just stuck with me. It's like we all have that time, that breakfast of choices. We all have that chance every morning to just change it up, right? Change our thoughts, change our mindset, just change it up. Wake up with a new day. It doesn't matter what we did yesterday or the 10 years before. We have that chance to change it up.
Wow, Jo, I'm telling you, because, ladies and gentlemen, you got to go back episode 27. Jo has one of the best stories you'll ever see, you ever hear in your life. It was so good. It was so long, so detailed. I put it in 2 parts. She got really real with it.
Did. I
Yeah, I
did, Lou.
mean, and I was happy because like you actually brought out a lot more I thought, and it was a great conversation. But I have to ask you, when I was on your podcast, I felt very comfortable. I shared about my, me trying to move on after losing my daughter.
Yes.
Um, you know, you have a phrase that I always wanted to ask you before. I asked you before, but I want you to tell everyone here. From rock bottom to rock solid. Where did you come up with that? And tell everybody, what does that mean?
Rock bottom is different for everybody. And again, it's recovery speak. When someone hits their rock bottom, that's when they're going to make a change, right? That's when they're going to make that new choice. But rock bottom, you'll think that you hit it, and man, pretty soon you're under it. You know what I mean? You can hit it more than once, and it's absolutely different for everybody. Everybody's
Mhm.
rock bottom is different. And it sometimes takes us to get that low before we make those changes and make those new choices. And everybody can make those changes, and everybody has the chance to make a new choice to change up what they're doing and become rock solid. So I feel like, going from rock bottom and becoming rock solid, everybody can do that. Everyone can do that. Sometimes we just need a little hand up. Not a hand out, but a hand up.
I like that. You are so good at what you do. And I told you this before. I mean, like when I hear your podcast, and when you talking to other people, like they really feel very good and very safe about what they're talking about. And we're gonna talk about a couple of things that you bring on your podcast. I mean, struggles from addiction. It could be all type of addictions, mental illness, incarceration, which I want to get into later on. Domestic violence, that has to be a big one for you when people come on, and because not that many people can really come out and feel comfortable about talking about domestic violence, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't even report that shit. They don't even talk about it.
No, they don't.
You talk about suicide. We talk about toxic family. I want to bring up a couple of things, right, that I actually found out, and I want to ask your opinion. Let's talk about toxic relationships.
Oh boy. Okay.
You know, you know, I think a lot of us have been in toxic relationships in some form or way, right?
Hmm.
Right. You talk about this on your podcast when guests come on. They want to talk about toxic relationships. But I found this out. An average of 80% of Americans, 80% has experienced some type of emotional abuse. That, Joe, that fucking floored me. Emotional abuse, like I guess like having a bad friend or they said something. I mean, like when your people come on, have you had stories like that? Do people talk about that stuff on your show?
All the time. Most of the people that I talk with, trauma is 90% of addiction, right?
Yeah.
And we all have trauma, and we have stored trauma. And it's inside us, and it works its way in various different ways. And people that are hurt people. And that's where that stat that you have comes from. And there's a lot of hurt people out there, and all they know to do is hurt people because that's what they came from. And so that's how that just continues, right? If we let it continue and we don't break the cycle, we're going to turn around and hurt people.
Okay.
So you had to heal. You got to heal yourself, and it's your responsibility. You can only be a product of your environment for so long before you're a product of your choices. And
Toxic,
toxic. And
toxic people.
we're the only ones that can change it, Lou. We're the only one that can become better and become not toxic to the next person in our lives. If we drag it around and drag it around like Linus's blanket, we're going to keep hurting people.
Is that like the same thing as like them toxic people being like a narcissist or something like that? Is that close to that, or is it a little bit different?
It's a little bit
In your
different.
opinion? A little
It's a
bit
little bit
different,
different.
right?
Narcissism is a disorder. It's an actual disorder. That word's a buzzword right now. It gets thrown around a lot, but it's a real thing.
Mm. Well, they also said 75% of Americans had no matter. Let me start this over, right? Right. You know how we right. You go to work and like you have that boss. that's pissing you off or making you whatever. Now they said this is part of a toxic effect. Your boss at work is toxic. That's considered a toxic relationship, right?
Can be.
I did,
Can be.
this is something I just want to throw out there. I know you don't really get into this, but I thought it was funny. I wanted to tell you about this. That's the most stressful part of their day is their boss. 75% of their day is stressful. The average Americans, it's because of their boss. Side effects are high blood pressure and depression.
And you know what I say to that? Make a new choice. Find a new boss because you're at work more than you're at home. And if you're not happy doing what you're doing, you are the absolute only one that can change that.
See the choices, right?
All about choices.
I love you, Joe. You get into you know this one. It has to be hard.
Hmm.
And this is for men and women. Physical abuse,
Hmm.
domestic violence.
Hmm.
Like when somebody comes on there with you, right? I know it's different ways, different stories. But man, that has to make you feel a certain way, right? About when they come on to different stories, right? Because they're saying you got 5.3 million. This is just reported, right? This is not the unreported shit. You know, there's a lot of unreported out there. Trust me. 5.3 million has went through domestic violence. This is annually.
Sad.
Like annually?
Sad.
Joe, when I saw this, I was very confused. I'm thinking over the last 10 years, this is annually. This is 5.3 million women, right?
Yes.
You got 3.2 million men
Yes.
annually. And this is just reported.
Hmm.
What do you think about all that? I mean, you got people come on domestic violence, physical abuse, men and women. I mean,
Hmm.
like annually?
Hmm. Sad. Very sad is what I think about it. Again, Lou, hurt people hurt people. And I've been through domestic violence more than once in more than one relationship. And the common question that you hear people ask, and I know you've heard it before, why don't you just leave? Why don't you just leave? Why did they
Yeah,
stay? That's so stupid. Why didn't they just leave? Why didn't they just leave, right? It seems
yeah,
so simple when you say that.
yeah.
There's so many reasons. It doesn't start off. You don't start a relationship off with domestic violence, right? People would leave.
Mhm.
So that person is a whole different person when they start that relationship. They don't lead with violence, right? They lead with being Mr. Wonderful for however long they can sustain that. And you're in it now. Sometimes you have all kinds of things together. Sometimes the woman or the man isn't financially secure on their own. Sometimes there's children involved. Sometimes they're threatening you. Sometimes they're intimidating you. Sometimes they tell you they will kill you. They will kill your family. They will kill your friends. They will take away this, take away that. They will. I can tell you, nurses. I will turn you in and tell them that the drugs that I have are yours. There's so many yes, so many things, Lou. You're asking me about someone coming on. I have my next episode will be someone that went through a narcissistic domestic violence relationship. That'll be my next episode next Thursday. Um, it happens every single day, and there's so many reasons that people just don't leave. And just understand that it's a cycle. It's a cycle of abuse, and it starts in later on in the relationship generally. People just don't start beating the hell out of people day one, and they don't start acting like that day one either. Um, so that leads you to believe someone knows what they're doing. Okay. And
Yeah.
then when you start introducing addiction into it and drugs and alcohol and all those things, and now somebody that may not be actually stable in the first place has now got substances on top of that. It isn't bringing out the great human form. Okay. So there's many reasons for it. And like I said, I have been through it myself. Now I did leave. I did not have children with those people,
Mhm.
and I am able to take care of myself financially, but many women are not.
Yeah.
And people will say, well, why didn't they just do this or why didn't they just do that? Sometimes they were not allowed to get a job. The man made sure they were not able to take care of themselves. They weren't allowed to have a vehicle, sometimes not even a phone.
So
So
that's that whole like kind of comparison to that narcissistic control thing.
yes, yes. It's definitely a controlling type of situation. And, you know, we're controlled every single one of us is controlled by something every single day. You brought
Mhm.
up your job. We're controlled by our jobs. We're controlled by laws. We're controlled by what we're told we can and can't do. We're controlled by social media, how we feel. So there's tons of control in this world. People just look at it differently when it's domestic violence. They think, why'd they let someone control them? You let someone control you every day. The average person does. So if you really sit and think it through, it's not as hard to get into that situation as someone might think.
Joe, I'm not gonna lie, yeah, I was one of those people for many, many years, thought
Mhm.
about that, and I was like, why stay?
Mhm.
Why go through all that?
Mhm. Mhm.
And like, I remember even like two times in my life, right? I seen it on the street, right? So I'm trying to be Mr. Hero and shit, right?
Mhm.
So I run over there, I'm breaking it up, and not just once, but twice. And what does she do? She attacked me.
Turns
It's like,
against
leave
you.
him alone.
Absolutely.
I was like,
Absolutely.
are you shitting me?
So a lot of times that's what happens when the cops are called too. They won't say that's actually happening and they'll defend, 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 right? Because we are taught, especially women, it happens to men too, but we are nurturers. We're taught to be loyal. We're taught to be loving. And loyalty is a big thing, right? And so you've got this person telling you, you're not this and you're not that. And, you're supposed to back me up and you're supposed to stand behind me and you're supposed to have my back and blah, blah, blah. And so, when the cops leave that night, if you don't have this man's back, what's going to happen? And so
Well,
there's just so many reasons. I mean, we could talk all day on domestic violence, really,
well,
seriously.
I got you on that one. But
Hmm.
before I go on to the next one, I'm gonna
Hmm.
let you know something that nobody knows.
Okay, I'm ready. What is
Okay.
that? Hmm.
I guess you can kind of say I'm one of the 3 million men.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, because not that many men talk about this. I was
Right.
like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna get into it.
Let's do it.
I'm not gonna say the person.
Okay, that's fine.
Um, I was in a situation back in the day, long-term situation, and they used to come at me violently, violently, right?
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
they would say, and we get into a big argument, and they would attack me.
Hmm.
Now they knew that I was not the person that was going to fight back. I
Hmm.
wasn't going to do that because how way my grandmother raised me, like a man does not lay a hands on a woman. He
Hmm.
protects his female, this and that.
Hmm.
So we would get into three different occasions over the years, and she physically assaulted me, hitting me, kicking me, hit me with a pan. Now I, blocking and stuff like that. And the third time took me a lot not to go after.
Hmm.
Took me a lot, but I knew because how way I was raised. Even after my grandmother was gone, like I was afraid she would come out the grave and beat my ass if I still did that shit, right? But that's how I was raised, and she knew I was not going to pick up my hands to her. So, and I do feel I don't know if that considers that abuse, but it was abuse to me because I did not
Absolutely.
fight back.
Absolutely.
And I just thought about that. I actually was just talking about that not so long ago. And I was like, you know what? We talking about this today. And it's the first time I've ever really talked about this. Besides, I mentioned it, but this is the first detail I
Hmm.
got into it.
Hmm.
Did it scar me? I can't say it did or didn't. I was very angry.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, it's only so much you can fucking take, right?
Did it start
But I
out?
still
Did it start out that way? Did she start out acting like?
once, once, and I was like, nah, she just probably tripping. She just probably mad, right? It happened like 3 times over years.
Hmm.
And so I had to, restrain myself because I believe no matter what happens, no man should strike a woman. Now, there's a controversy about that where people will say, well, man, if she keep on initiating it, he can fight back. Now, I've talked to many people about that. I still don't agree with it, but there are other women out there. I don't know if you heard this or not, or saying if she has the balls enough to fight a guy, he should be able to come back. I don't agree with it, but so what do you think will some women today say that if she has the balls enough to hit on the guy, that he should fight back? That's a tricky question. I know a lot of people talk about that too.
It's a hard one. I've seen that as well. I've actually been there when that was happening.
Mhm.
So I've seen that situation as well. I don't think it's right for a woman to hit on a man because she knows he's not going to hit her back. I do
Yep.
not think that's right. I do not think that's fair. I think that's just as wrong as a man hitting on a woman knowing that if she turns around and takes a swing on him, it's not going to hurt as bad. Hey, sometimes it hurts as bad, sir. Promise. So, um, but neither way is fair, Lou. You don't put your hands on people. You don't put your hands on people. And if you are going to put your hands on someone, that someone deserves better. I don't care who you are, man or woman. It's not okay to physically abuse, but it's also not okay to it's not okay to abuse someone else no matter what. And it doesn't usually start as physical. It usually starts as verbal and works its way up, right?
Oh
There's
God.
there's
Well,
the
I know I can tell
control,
you some verbal shit.
right? There's the control, then there's the verbal abuse, and then there's the criticizing all the time, all the time. You can never do anything right. You're this, you're that, you're blah, blah,
Oh,
blah. That stuff hurts just as much as being physically abused. And that can be much
are you
worse,
talking about my past, Joe?
right? See what I'm saying? And so, and you can't tell me that stuff hasn't affected you, Lou, because we've had many conversations.
Yes.
That stuff
Yes.
affects people. And you have to remember who you are and learn how to not believe it because it's not true. That person is trying everything they can do to hurt you. They're pulling out all the stops. And you've been vulnerable with this person, so they know what it is they're going to say that hurts you, right? They know the buttons to push.
Yep.
And when that starts happening, you are started now in a cycle of abuse. And you need to stop it quick. You need to stop it quick, and you need to not keep, they're not sorry. They're not sorry. They're going to do it again. All of that, I love you, baby. I'm sorry stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
won't do it again. I won't let it happen again. I don't know if you have any statistics on that, but I'm calling bullshit. Okay. And
Yeah, it's a lot of statistics on that. But before I get to my next one, ladies and gentlemen, breakfastofchoices@gmail.com is all one phrase, breakfastofchoices@gmail.com. If you want to book to be on her show, that's the person to go with. If you got any one of these topics. But let's
yes.
continue. Addiction. We talked about this
Mm-hmm.
in your last episode.
Mm-hmm.
And addiction is out there. I know there's many forms of addiction out there.
Mm-hmm.
I know you've had on, former addicts on your show. And, addiction, almost 21 million Americans have at least had one addiction, had one over their lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
One.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes a brave out there. But only 10% receive treatment.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. Insane. Um this one got me. I don't understand this. I guess it's real. 700,000 to 1 million has had a drug overdose that's leading to death since the year 2000.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of numbers,
Mm-hmm.
Joe.
Yes.
And that's all type of addiction.
Yeah.
Drug, alcohol, substance,
Mm-hmm.
which they kind of separate all that. I kind of swore that drug addiction and substance addiction was the same thing, but it's not. It's separate.
Well, substance abuse, you know, most substances are kind of classified as a drug, right? So it is, sometimes people just are used to the terminology drug abuse, right? They're not
Gotcha.
used to the terminology substance abuse. Substance can be alcohol, can be drug, can be whatever. It's just a foreign substance that you're putting in your body.
Okay. Joe,
Good.
out of all your episodes, right? Do
Mhm.
you know how many? Matter of fact, how many episodes have you had so far at this point in time?
Oh, um, 35 or 40, I think, that
Okay.
I'm on. I'm not sure which one we're on releasing right now. That's why I'm not sure. You know
Yeah,
how
I
we go
know.
ahead. We do more and more, and then they're ahead, so I can't remember which ones. I think we're still in the high 30s being released, but there's more episodes that I've done.
Yeah, I think we almost the same. I think I'm up to. I mean, well, by the time this is released, God, I'll be the 40s when by the time this is
Hmm.
released. So I think I'm
Hmm.
at like 35
Yeah.
right now. Because as right now, when this comes out, Tammy's podcast one will be out. Which,
Okay.
by the way, yeah, check that out. By the way,
Of
too,
course. Of course.
episode 35.
Of course.
Um, when you went along this journey, like before I get to my last subject,
Hmm.
tell me about the first day, right?
Hmm.
You got everything together.
Hmm.
First time you sat down in front of your laptop, your computer, or phone, whatever you had.
Hmm.
First guest lined up. You got the questions. You got the guests lined up. Walk me through your first episode.
Well, so when I first started to do the podcast, or first knew I was going to do the podcast, I hadn't really figured out yet exactly what platform I was going to use, how all that was going to work, but I
Mhm.
knew who I wanted my first guest to be. I'd already started aligning guests in my head for
Yes.
probably 5 or 6 months, right? Just wake up thinking about it. And I already knew who I wanted my first guest to be. And I called him up and talked to him and explained what I was going to do and said, there's nobody else that I would want other than you to do this with me for my first guest. He said, I'm
Mhm.
in. I'm totally in. So I actually did that recording, Lou, on a Zoom call. That was the mic was off, the sound was off, the quality was off, we were scratchy, it was crazy, but I was just so excited about doing it, I didn't even care.
Okay.
And I went ahead and I did that one and I saved it. And while he loved what we talked about, he hated the way he sounded, which everybody says that. Do I really sound like that on video? Do I sound like that? Everybody says that.
Mhm.
Um, so that, it started with just recording. I wasn't even ready to do my podcast yet. So when I finally learned how to upload that Zoom file to my computer and then had to figure out how to get it onto, I was using Buzz, like, that process of how do I do
Yeah.
this? How do I do that? And you see it and it moved and you're just so excited because, oh my God, I have a file. Now what do I do with it? Right. And so, I mean, for me, I'm not the most technical of people. So I have really had to learn.
Shit, you more technical than me because before we started this, we had all type of issues. You
But we
figured it
got
out.
it fixed. We got it fixed. Yeah.
No,
I mean,
you got it fixed.
well, I mean, in the last year, I've definitely upped my game on the technical side because I've had to. I've had to learn. But I
Yeah.
have someone that helps me on the back end. I have
Yeah, I got
somebody.
you.
Shout out to Mariana. Hi, Mariana. She helps me on the back end with she's phenomenal. I do my episodes in Riverside. I have a podcast log. They pull them off of there. So sometimes I do not know who's coming next. We're sometimes we have this log with these drop downs that say what we're going to be talking about. And
Mhm.
so we don't want 5 of the same ones in a row, right? So sometimes
Gotcha.
we have to space them
Mix it
out,
up.
or sometimes I'll say, "Hey, I don't want this one to go next. I want this one." And then sometimes I don't even know. I just like whenever it gets pulled off the log, it's going. And they help me on the back end. I do the editing on the front side, they do the editing on the back side. And so I do have some help still because, again, I'm not the most technical person. Could I probably do it all at this point? Yeah. Do I want to? No, I don't. It's not my, some of us are good at some things and I'd rather talk than do all the technical stuff. So,
You're a genius, Joe. You're a genius. Come on now. You're a genius.
no, no,
Trust me.
no.
Joe, I can tell you right now, my first episode, was Tammy,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Oh my
She,
gosh, that's right.
she was my first episode, and it was fucking a disaster.
Why?
Because I recorded my first two episodes with Tammy and a guy I know named Mark, and I did it back to back on the same day. Right? I was like,
Boy.
I'm scared shitless. So, I mean, I'm scared. I'm like, damn, oh shit, what the hell am I gonna do now? All right, I'm trying fumbling through this. What's I still do, but I really don't care.
Yeah.
It's just not about me; it's about my guests,
Mhm.
and it was on Zoom, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So I didn't think about doing the whole cloud backup thing,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I got through these episodes. So I'm looking through the file. I talked to Tammy. She was like, well, with the file. So did you check out the file? I was like, what file?
Right.
It was not there.
Oh, gosh.
It didn't even record. I was so pissed, right?
Oh, no.
So they both was very gracious enough. They both came back on 2 days later, like hours apart.
Mhm.
Redid the episode, came out so much better. I was appreciative of them. They was great about it. Yeah, but she was my first guest. I was yeah, because I was, she put me on, and so she was my first guest. So I was so happy with that.
Yeah.
Now, let's get into another subject:
Yeah.
mental health.
Mm.
Like, have you had a lot of stories of mental health?
Mhm. Absolutely. Mental health is all part of addiction as well. If we're not well, that's why we mask and that's why we use substances. So it really all goes hand in hand. When people think of mental health, they think of the extreme situations of mental health, right? They always go to the extreme with, oh, if if they need this or they need that, they're crazy or whatever. That's mental health is mental well-being. All of us, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All of us have to watch our mental health and our mental well-being. And that goes for all the way from the things that we tell ourselves, the things that we say to ourselves when we go to bed at night, the things we say to ourselves when we wake up in the morning. We have to be proactive in our own mental health. And it's not it doesn't mean you're getting put in a mental institution. That's not mental health. You know what I mean? Those are extreme cases, right? Mental health is just all encompassing mental wellness. And we have to take care of ourselves. And there's no more time that I can think of in this world where mental health is so prevalent. And we have to get rid of the stigma about it being, oh no, they need to go see a therapist. Oh no, they need to talk to somebody. You know what? Everybody needs to talk to somebody. We're talking about things right now, right? Um,
Yeah.
it is not a stigma. There should not be any guilt. There should not be any shame. There should not be any stigma surrounded by mental health at this day and age. Um, all of us have things in our past. All of us have things that we need to deal with, and don't want to pass on to our children and to our children's children. And those generational cycles and curses have to be broken. We have to take responsibility for that.
Joe, you have eloquently talked about the last four subjects. You know your shit. You know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? So that proves right there that when people when they contact you to come on your podcast, which a lot more people will, because I have a different audience and they might see that you'll have
Mhm.
more people contact you at breakfast of choices at gmail.com, breakfast of choice at gmail.com.
Thank you.
You explain it so very well, like, the knowledge you have of all these topics here. And I'm proud of you. Yeah, I mean, because a lot of people, right, when people come on podcasts, like, guys like me, but they have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. I hear a lot of them, like, but you have the knowledge, you have to drive, like, what you're talking about. So people gonna come on, feel safe, and have a great conversation with you. That's how way I felt. I mean, right, what we talked about, especially even off topic, off the podcast, like the knowledge you have is just like the best in the world. I'm proud of you.
Thank you,
You
Lou.
know, your podcast, Breakfast of Choices is a great one. I listen to your episodes. But to that mental health one, I mean, I found out 57.8 million live with some type of form of mental illness. 57.8 million.
Mhm.
That's a lot of fucking people.
It's a lot of people, Lou. It's a lot of people. And, you go back to childhood when kids aren't doing well in school and they're hyper and they're this and they're that. And they start talking about, oh, they got ADD and they got ADHD and they have this and they have that. And you start throwing medication at them and you start labeling them and doing all those things from a super young age. um, that continues, right? Now they have a label and it follows them, and now they're this and they're that, and some people have had 27 different medications thrown at them and this and that, and and we it's part of that is because there is a stigma, and people don't know what to do. People don't know what to do. So we just throw medication at it, right? Because that'll fix it. That'll fix it. It fixes everything. But does it? Or does it cause other side effects and other things? And so sometimes, you know what we have to do, Lou? We just got to talk about it. We got to talk about it, right? And what's the name of your podcast, Lou? Let's talk about it. And sometimes that's all it takes is just to start talking about it. So maybe you're talking to a mom who's having some trouble with her kids, and you're just talking regular daily chats, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, that's going on with my son right now. That's going on with my son. Oh gosh, that's going on with my daughter. What did you do about it?" It's just being able to be open and being able to talk about those things and realizing that mental health is not a stigma. We all have mental health. We all have to, again, be responsible for our mental health. And
Oh God, because you my counselor half the time anyway.
I mean, it's so important to, and the reason that I do talk about it is because I've been through it. You know what I mean? It's an everyday challenge. I struggled with substance abuse and incarceration and domestic violence and suicide and all the things my whole entire life. I've been surrounded by it. So it's come more from a place of have to get through it, right? You have to learn how to get through it. So while I'm knowledgeable about it, it's because I've been through it.
Yes,
But then
yes,
I
yes.
have taken the steps for the certifications and all those things to feel like I was certified to talk about it. But really, it all came from firsthand knowledge. To be completely honest, however sad that may be, it's really firsthand knowledge.
Well, Joe, I want you to I know people who watch episode 27, but tell the people again, like, what's your certifications that you earned for this?
So I have always talked with people, Lou. I've always been that person that people come to and talk through things. And even when I wasn't solid, I was still the person that people came to. And I would go home thinking, I don't know why the hell they're talking to me. I'm a hot mess. You know what I mean? But it's just always been that way. And when I was incarcerated at a really young age, I just learned a lot about myself and started taking the steps necessary to change myself, change my mental health, yes, a lot of it was court ordered. So in the beginning, I fought it and fought it and fought it because it was court ordered and somebody telling you what to do, right? Nobody likes that. And so that's what happens sometimes. It's just ego. We fight it because someone told us to do it when really we need it. So once I figured out I needed it, right? And actually started really trying to do something about it and tried to learn about myself and why I do the stupid shit that I do, it all made sense, right? So it was like, oh gosh, maybe this is helpful to talk about it and to go through this and to learn from it and to go through the NA and to go through the programs and figure out if I can get better and why do I do the things that I do. And guess what? Gosh, that shit worked. So I did start getting better, and it's a struggle. I mean, it's a struggle for everybody. Recovery is a struggle for everyone. It's something that
Yes.
you have to, that one day at a time is no joke. It's not a cliche. Sometimes it is one day, sometimes it's minute to minute that you have to remember and take yourself back. Yeah, absolutely. Um, I've had a lot of falls off the wagon, Lou, a lot of falls off the wagon. And you fall down 97 times, you pick yourself up 98. And that's all it's about. Don't beat yourself up. We get back up, and tomorrow's a new day. We make a new choice, right? And we keep on doing it until we get it right. And that's how we become rock solid. We keep on doing it until we get the shit right. And so the certifications I've went through, I'm a peer recovery support specialist, which is just called a PRSS, and that's a state certification that you go through the state, and it's someone that has to have, first of all, learned experience, learned behavior in mental health or substance abuse. So you have to actually share your story in the class. You have to share a little bit of your story. and talk about it. And everybody shares their stories. And it's the first time and the first place that ever made it okay to have a story. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You can't go to your everyday job and talk about your story, right? Because people are going to be like, that's not good. Why do we have them working here? You know what? Everybody has a damn story. Everybody has a
Mhm.
story. The more people I talk to, it's if everybody knew everybody's story, they would just be like, oh, you know what I mean?
Girl, please.
Right, right. We all have a story, right? And me
Mhm.
and an old friend of mine have a little joke, about skeletons in the closet. It's like just throw it in the closet with the rest of them, because we all have it. We all have them. And if you're
Girl,
like,
you got people with graveyards in their closets, huh?
yeah, sometimes, yeah, there's a whole cemetery in there, Lou. There's a whole cemetery, and it's like we have to stop being ashamed of who we are, where we came from, what we've done, because it makes us who we are today. And once you can kind of lose that guilt and shame, that's part of mental health. The guilt and shame that keeps that cycle going, that cycle of abuse, the cycle of neglecting yourself, the cycle of substance use, is all stems from that. And so once we can kind of laugh about our shit and get and start going, you know what? Yeah, I did that. Yep, that was me. Yep, that sucked. I'm not proud of it, but here we go. New day, new choice.
Uh-huh.
I think that's when you start climbing that ladder. You know what I mean? From rock bottom to rock solid. It's just one rung at a time, right? Climbing up that ladder. And all the people that do are out there thinking they don't have a story and they've had this perfect life. Let me tell you what, the fall from grace is only one step. So you want to be judgmental and you want to be all those things, you can do that. But I hope someone's there to pick you up when you fall.
Trust me, just like I mean, my podcast is all over the place. I've heard many stories, and
Yeah,
the next wave of stories that got coming out is going to blow your mind.
I love that.
I was amazed by some of the stories that's coming out. Actually, it'll be out before this comes out, but it's amazing, and I love hearing people's stories. I love it doing it. But we go talk about one last thing before I wind it down on off the episode last time, episode 27. You talked about you was incarcerated,
Hmm.
and a couple people reached out to me about like we all like some of us know about how way men are incarcerated. They talk about how way what goes on behind the scenes of men. They go through this, they go through that. Not that many people talk about how way it is when a woman goes through incarceration, which is crazy. I love stats, man. I
I know
like
you
all that
do.
right there. I do, I do. There are 190,000 women locked up in the United States today, while roughly 10% of the total incarceration population are men. That 10% women still represent a larger portion of people in prisons and jails in the previous decade. So it's jumped up in the
Hmm.
previous decade.
Hmm.
In many states, women incarcerated rates are continuing to grow. In the last 3 years, it's grown 37%. The last 3 years, right?
Hmm.
Last two, this I didn't know. And you mentioned this, I guess, some of your podcasts before. 58% of women in state prisons are parents with minor children. Wow.
Sad. Oh.
And because I'm going to ask you a question about that, but the last one, nearly 7,000 young women and girls that are caught up in bad situations or get caught up with other people that they are around. So 7,000 of those women who got locked up was around the wrong person. 7,000. And this is over the last 10 years. Think about that. And they didn't do shit. They were just around it. But Joe, first and foremost, let me ask you about that, right? About the women that's the parents that get locked up and they have minor children. Did you see that when you was in there? Did you run into people with women in jail like that?
All the time. There's so I mean, there's so many women in jail that have children. I also ran into people in jail that their children were in jail with them. So
About that.
that, just like you said, birds of a feather flock together, right? And a lot of women's crimes, sorry to say this, but have to do with men and the men that they're around. They're holding drugs, they're running drugs, they're writing checks, they're doing all those things behind their man, right? And not that's not an excuse. I'm not making an excuse. It's just kind of sometimes the way it works for a woman, or they're trying to feed their own addiction and feed their own habit and doing those things for themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just got the I don't know what I want to call it, privilege really of going back into Mabel Bassett Women's Correctional Facility just this last month. And I got to go back into women's prison. There's 1,200 women in that prison. And I got to go and sit in on a class that's taught by Prison Fellowship. And sitting in there was 16 women in that class, a lot of them parents. And they were talking very openly and going through it's very the structured class that they have, and they all had done their homework, and they were coming in, and the whole premise of the day was they were talking about everything they filled out for their homework. And sitting there and listening to these women was exactly what I went through when I was in prison. I went through classes like that. The one that I went through was called the Empowerment Program, that helped me to become better and to be able to talk about all those things. And, the sadness of having to talk to your children on the phone while they're living with someone else, some of them in foster care, some of them with a family friend or a family member. When I was in prison, I didn't have children. I was a child myself. You know what I mean? I did not have children.
Uh-huh.
And watching the women come back from visits just so torn up and just so beside themselves because all they want to do is hold their child and they can't. You can't hold your child. You can't, and it was really, really hard. One of the things that I did in prison was help get people ready for their visits, putting on their makeup, putting their hair up, doing all the things, getting ready for a visit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they go and they feel good and they're all pretty and they got their hair done and their makeup done and all the things, and they're going to go to their visit and they're happy because they're going to visit their people. And sometimes when they come back, just they're happy because they got to see their people, but it's an overwhelming sadness of not being able to leave with your people and realizing you can get drugs when you're in jail, but if you choose to stay clean while you're in jail, you're dealing with all those feelings. You have to deal with all of that, all of the wreckage that you caused, and you have to get real with yourself that I caused this. I did this. It was my choices that got me here. I don't care if it's behind a man, or behind a family, behind a whatever. Overall, it's our choices that get us there. And it is hard to watch. It's hard to see. It's hard to watch. And I didn't have people come visit me. I didn't ask anybody to come visit me. I didn't want anybody to come visit me because I didn't want to go through that tear up. You know what I mean? For them and for myself. Kind of a big baby that way, but I just didn't want to deal with it. But I was there for all the women that had the visits, and it was hard. That was a hard, it was a hard day, and it was a hard night every single time.
So, Joe, let me ask you something, right? Because I was kind of curious about this.
Mm-hmm.
From your last podcast, like, when you went to court, the judge, you thought you was gonna get out. He was like, they're not gonna hold me here. It's nothing. I'm about to get out, right? Sadly mistaken, you was wrong. They kept you there. One question I would like to know: when the first night, when you was like, shit, I ain't getting out of here. How was that? If you can remember, how was your first night like when you was like, I'm not getting out? How was that for you?
When I got arrested and they told me that I was facing that 16 to 32 years, they took my shoelaces. That gave me a moment of, oh shit, this might be a little more serious than I thought.
Mhm.
But I still stuffed it. I still didn't let that affect me. I still put it in that little compartment with the other skeletons, locked the door,
Yeah.
and said, nah, that's not happening to me. And so I think I kept going through, there's so many court dates, right? You go through all the dates, all the times, all the dates, it gets pushed back, da 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 da. It's like a friggin' rigmarole, right? 13 months later, I'm still in county jail, waiting to get sentenced. And so that sentencing day, that's a hard one because a lot of things can happen, right? I chose not to go to trial. I chose to do a plea bargain. Um, because of all the things they had already said about me, I knew what my trial was going to look like. It was going to be a circus. And I wasn't willing to go through that for myself and my family. Um, so I didn't do what they wanted me to do, didn't get up on the stand and say someone else made me do this and someone else made me do that, because that's bullshit, right? I'm in charge of my choices. So I didn't do that and kind of took away their what they wanted to do, and be able to give someone else life, right? Kind of took that away. So I knew sentencing wasn't going to go great for me after that because I didn't do what they wanted me to do. So I was holding my breath a little bit. When they came back, I think they originally gave me 3.5 years. 3.5 years, I think, originally. And the judge said, I have to use you as an example, basically, because you can't have people running around talking about breaking people out of jail and doing these things and doing this and doing that. So basically, even though you've never been arrested before, I have to use you as an example. I find that to be crazy. I thought that was like, really? You have to? You're the judge, you know what I mean? So still, um, I think that day when I was sentenced, I was already desensitized to the whole thing. At that point, I was like, let's just get this over with and let me go serve my time. I'm done going back and forth to court. I'm done with this whole little pony show. I'm just done with it. Let me just get sentenced and go do my time. So I think maybe, while that was a long-winded answer for what you're asking me, I think at the time I was already desensitized to the whole thing and just ready to get on with it. And so I don't think I had any kind of extreme reaction. I think I just walked back in my little handcuffs and shackles, and everybody's like, "What happened? What happened? What happened? What happened?" And I was like, I can't remember if it was 5 years originally or 3.5, but um, I was like, this happened, and everybody was like, "Oh, okay, okay, that's not bad. That's not bad, right? That's not too bad. That's not too bad." And I was like, "Yeah, could have gone a lot worse." And that's kind of how I looked at it.
Okay. Now, Joe, you go into the jail system now, right? And you're
Mhm.
like speaking to women in prison. Do you think how much of a difference the daily day to day um for women go through prison, like from wake up, shower, this and that? Like, is it kind of like the same how way you went through it, or do you think it's different now? I mean, that you see from the outside. It like the same system now? Has it changed or what?
Um, well, it was weird for me to go to prison, back to prison for the first time. When I was incarcerated, I was in a maximum security prison, right? That had medium security attached with it. So it was a maximum and a medium. And you couldn't just walk through the prison, walk out to the yard if you were a visitor or something like that, right? It was very structured. So when I went back to prison this time and we went in and they were buzzing us out the door, I'm like, well, isn't someone coming to get us to walk us through? And she was like, no, we're just going to walk to where we're going. And so we opened the door right onto the yard, right? And I'm like, we just get to walk through the yard? He said, yeah, we're just going to go back. The chapel was all the way on the other side. And she said, yeah, we got to go over to the chapel. And I was like, they just let us come out here and walk around? And she said, "Yeah." And I was floored by that. I was just like, "What?" Not that because I felt like it was a danger or anything. I just thought it was I was not expecting that at all. I was
The difference,
expecting,
right?
yeah. Um Now Mabel Bassett has a maximum and a minimum as well. And I said, "Why are all these people walking around on the yard at noon? You know what I mean? What's everybody doing? Doesn't everybody have jobs?" Because we had to have jobs. We were running the prison, right? We had to have
Yeah.
kitchen duty and outside duty and cemetery crew and all the different jobs of the prison, janitorial crew and all the things. And she goes, well, there's really not enough jobs to go around. So a lot of the women don't even have jobs. And I'm thinking, but that just gives you all day to think about shit and get in trouble, right? Because you ain't got nothing to do. So I don't know that whole structure of that prison, but that I found bizarre to me. I was like, wait a minute, we just get to go walk around. There's nobody accompanying us. So maybe it's just the difference of what type of facility I was in.
Gotcha.
I guess. I don't know. I don't know if it's like that I can't believe it's like that everywhere, but that was interesting for me to just go.
I believe it was. Now, Joe, you know how I weigh, like, the movies, and man, a couple people I know too that was in prison, in state or federal pen.
Mhm.
Guys, they like to say, like, when they was locked up, they get into fights.
Mhm.
I mean, not like the fights like you see on Hollywood where you got walking, you got to knock out the biggest guy or some bullshit like that. Like, they just got into it. Certain sections, certain, cliques or whatever. Was it like that for you in women's prison? Did you see a lot of fights? Was it like cliques? Is it groups? Was it everybody separate? Was it like kumbaya shit? I mean, what was it?
Definitely not kumbaya. It's groups. There's definite groups. It's definitely you have to the rules and the language that are inside prison are very much different than the rules and the language outside of prison. And you're either going to learn those rules really, really quick, or you better be a fast learner. Let's just say that. I'll give you an example. When I got to prison, I don't remember how long I was there. And I don't even think I was in my own pod. I don't know why. I was in another pod, and pod is really more county jail. I was in another section of the prison, and I was sitting in this room with some people, and I had lost my cup. I had lost my cup that I carried around that was my cup, right? And I had said to somebody, have you seen my cup? Have you seen my cup? I can't find it. So my friend that I had been through county jail with, through prison, like up the ladder, who we didn't get along at first, but we became pretty good friends. Mm-hmm. She said, hey, JoJo, you can't say that in here. And I said, say what? And she said, have you seen my cup? I said, you can't say that? She said, no. I was confused. I said, what do you mean? She said, because did you hear how she answered you? I said, yeah, she was pissed. She said, because she basically took that as you said, did you just take my cup? That's how she took it. Gotcha. Right? And so the little things that you say don't have the same meaning as if I said it to you. Hey, Lou, you seen my cup? You think I stole your cup, bitch? That's not what you're thinking, right? Okay? You're thinking, no, Joe, I haven't seen your cup, right? So I had to learn that, you know what I mean? And that you either learn.
Be careful, girl, to get your ass kicked up in there.
Right. So you either, like I said, you got to be a fast learner. You either learn real quick or you get your ass kicked, and that's the truth.
Oh my God.
And so that was a little bit different for me, because again, I've explained some to you how I grew up, how my family structure was, and how I grew up. I didn't really grow up like that. I took myself there and put myself in those places, in those positions, in my own life, but I didn't really grow up like that. So that was something I definitely had to learn. Like, I already knew the street life, so I knew some of that, obviously, the respect and all those things, but there was definitely a learning curve for me going to jail and going to prison. I can remember looking up, and I remember somebody talking some shit, and she looked at me and she said, I'll come down there and bust you in the mouth. And I'm thinking, all right, I need to say something here. Think quick. You know what I mean? What do I need to say? And I looked up and I said, come on down. And she didn't come down. What else do you say? Right? So you better be thinking quick. You better be thinking on your feet. And it's a street life. It's street life. And so when you ask if women's prison is the same as men's prison, it's street life no matter how you look at it. With a different set of rules.
Joe, one last question I got for you. What was the ratio of guards compared to men and women? Was it more men? Was it more women guards? Was it the same? You know, for being a female person.
Mm-hmm. County jail, there was more men, handful of women.
Mhm.
In prison, I think I had more female guards, but definitely had the share of men. But I think more female in women's prison I had. Um, but there still was men as well.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna get into to the guard play with you.
Yeah, that's a whole nother set of that's
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
another set of
I'm
rules.
not getting into that one.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Joe, wait, hold on, man. I gotta get some. Hold on, man. Hold on, man. Hold on. I left it over here. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Joe, I thank you for coming on here, and I
Yeah.
mean, right now we talked about certain things of your podcast, especially the incarceration point. Like this is the stuff that when people reach out, see this episode, they go and see what you do with your platform, which is a great platform. You know, I'm just amazed by it. I see you getting, or man, for hearing you because you're based on Spotify and Apple or and
Mhm,
Audible, all the
mhm,
listening podcasts.
mhm.
Don't forget the guys download as well. She needs those
Yeah,
downloads.
I
Downloads
download.
are
Yeah.
key. Downloads are key. Again, everything will be in the description. You know, breakfastofchoices@gmail.com. We will keep on blasting it out. You know, you'll see it when it comes out. It's gonna look real good.
You're so
Joe,
sweet.
I am proud of you, what you do with your podcast. You know, when I see people like you, you know, even your new friend, Chris. I mean, I
Yes,
mean, I'm following her now. What she's doing, good shit too.
I know.
Like, you know, it inspires me to go out and get better. Right? There's a couple other people out there, Sammy and Nick, that I know that actually I'm gonna have them on talk about their podcast. You know, like you know, we kind of like feed off each other,
Yeah,
see the energy
absolutely.
off each other, which
Absolutely.
I love. I do love. But before I give you my last word, you know what time it is.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I do.
Nah, well, you know, this is something very simple though. This is nothing. This is like, you know, nothing. It's a nothing moment here. You ready for this?
I'm ready, Lou. I'm ready.
You know what? I'm gonna mix it up.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna give you something that you asked that I asked you before.
Okay. I'm
And see
ready.
if it's the same one.
All right. Yeah, let's
Just
see.
one question. One question.
All right.
Hmm. Let me go mix it up a little bit for you. I can do it one last time. No, you know what? I'm really gonna mix this up. I'm just gonna ask you one question. The best question out here. Out of 35 episodes,
Hmm.
you talked to many people. You t- People off air and on air.
Hmm.
Breakfast of choices. What does that mean to you? Of everything you've been through in your life, all the ups and downs, you're giving back. You're hearing people's stories. You're giving them the platform to share their stories. Like, and also, you know what I mean, right? You actually got a new job helping more people out. Congratulations on that one.
Thank you.
But out of all this has happened to you, Joe, like forget about the game I do at the end. This is the question I want to ask you.
Okay.
Out of everything that you've been through, everything that's happening to you now, your episodes 35, you're probably up to 40 episodes when this comes out, your brand new career opportunity, you know, that's great for you. Like, how does that make you feel? Because to me, I think you fucking deserve it. But
Mhm.
how does that make you feel? That's the question I got for you to end this right here.
I think that everybody has to figure out what their purpose is, what they feel like their purpose is in this world and in this life. I think we all strive for that. I think everybody strives for, why am I here? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? I'm not happy at my job, right? We all strive for what is our purpose. And I feel like this is my purpose. This is absolutely my passion. Um, been able to turn pain into purpose. And, there's been a lot of pain, obviously. We've talked a lot off air too. There's been a lot of pain. Um, that's just part of life. That's just life for all of us, right? There's always going to be pain, but what we do with it, I think is really important. We can hold on to it, we can stuff it, or we can share it and turn it into a purpose. And I feel like I've done that. And you'll ask me, people will ask me, well, how many episodes? What are your stats? What is this? How many downloads? How much this? Hell, I don't fucking know. I do this because I love to do it. I love people. I love helping people. Helping people has got me in trouble my whole life. And I finally feel like helping people in this way is my purpose. I'm not getting myself in trouble helping people this way. I'm actually helping people just to help people. You know what I mean? Not helping anybody commit crimes. I'm not helping anybody sell drugs. I'm not helping anybody do any of that. I'm just helping people because that's where my heart is. And so it's really important to me to have a platform, to have a place for people to share their stories, because I think it's very healing for people to share their stories. It's not only healing for ourselves, but it's healing for someone else to hear the one little thing that might stick and help them get some help.
Tell everybody where you can see you at, Joe.
So Breakfast of Choices is on Spotify, it's on Apple, it's on all the whatever the podcast hosts are. I don't even know all those, you guys. I'm sorry. I really, truly do this because it's from my heart. And I tell people all the time, I'm Joe Summers, not Joe Rogan. So I don't know how many people are going to hear your freaking story. I have no idea. The idea of doing this is just, if we help one person, I always say that rock bottom to rock solid is like a ladder, right? It's a rung on a ladder. So we help one person, that next person helps a person, that next person helps a person. And everybody that comes on my podcast is available to help people. They've been through some shit. They've been down, they've been rock bottom, they've worked their way up, and they are all there to listen, and everybody's there to help people. And I think when you get that energy moving in the right direction, that's where we need to go. Just keep moving that energy forward and moving it positive.
Help me, ladies and gentlemen, because like I said, like the first time I went on a podcast was Tammy's, and then after I went on Joe, man, like I just kept on going. Like, well, I mean, you may think it's a joke. You are my counselor too. You know that.
That's what I do, Lou, and that's what I love. Like the people that call me and the people that talk to me and share their stories and share their heart with me. I love that. I absolutely love it. It makes me better as a person too. It just makes me better. There's no judgment. I have no judgment zone. I don't have that bone, I guess. I'm not saying that I don't say, what the fuck are you doing? That's ridiculous. I'm just saying, you already know it's ridiculous, right? But I'm just saying that judgment, we don't need to judge each other. We don't. We're all in this together. You hear me say it. Connection is the opposite of addiction. We're all in this together. Let's stop judging each other and start helping each other.
I don't know. Some of us, I ain't gonna say no names out there. Judge people, but
I know.
I.
I know it's the nature of this world, I think, to judge, but none of us are perfect. None of us are perfect. And
That was perfect.
If God's up there judging, we hear he's a loving God, right? So I don't think he's up there to judge us either. I think he's up there to help us. Whether you're a God, higher power, universe, whatever it is that you believe in, it's all about energy, and it's all about helping each other out in this world to get better and to make a better place.
That's why you're special, Joe. I tell you this shit all the time. You special. I tell you this all the time. And you gotta take it in. I'm telling you, what you're doing is amazing. I had to have you on. I want you to, I want to bring more people, like some people from my audience side to your side, right? To really, like, they might know someone that's going through what you guys talk about, what you talk about. I mean, and you've helped out a lot of people. I mean, hey, look, you helped me out a lot of shit. I don't know what the fuck I do. I mean, I told you, I'm serious. That you definitely my counselor. So, and I only got to pay you to give an insurance card. That's awesome.
You don't. There's no pay. There's no insurance. There's no anything. And the new job that you talked about that I'm taking is I'm actually going to get paid to do what it is that I do already, which is group facilitate. And I'm actually going to get paid for it. And I'm like, wow, that's a new concept, right? Because everything I do for free. I run around like a chicken volunteering, and I'm actually going to get paid to do what I already do. I'm like, wow, that's just crazy, right?
Yep.
It's crazy.
But you deserve it, though.
Well, I'm super excited about it. I'm ready to do what I already do and actually get paid for it. So that's kind of cool.
Well,
That was smart.
I wish I could get paid for my shit, but actually, now I'm gonna get paid for it. I just love to do what I do.
Yes.
It's fun for me. I like to learn new things. Learn different things, learn different topics. Yeah, it's gonna be real good. Joe, thank you so much for coming on. This has been amazing. You always make my day. I love you to death. You're always gonna be with me. I love you to death.
I love you for doing this, Lou. You are giving myself a place to talk about my own podcast. That's very, very kind of you to give each of us that are doing this. You know, we all kind of feed off each other, like you said. It's all energy, and it makes us all better at what we do to be able to talk to each other. Like, how do you do this? How do you do that? Fixing Riverside this morning, all those things. It makes us better to be able to be in that community together, right? And just help each
Yes.
other out. And I appreciate you for doing this and for what you do. Your podcast, Let's Talk About It. You talk to all kinds of people about anything. And I think that's awesome. You give people anything they want to talk about, you're willing to talk about with people. And I think that's really cool. I think
I
that's
love
really
it.
cool.
It's a good one for me. Joe, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank
Love you
you,
to
Lou.
death. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next time on Let's Talk About It.
Hi,
Peace.
Lou. Thank you.
Thank you for watching the show. Please like, subscribe, comment. Stay tuned next week for another exciting episode on Let's Talk About It.